In today's video, we will be looking back at the career of one of F1's biggest forgotten talents. Who is this forgotten talent, I hear you ask? Well, in today's video, we will be looking back at the career of Tom Pryce. For those of you who don't know, Tom Pryce was a Welsh F1 driver who was born on the 11th of June 1949. I will now hand you over to fellow YouTuber Rayan F1 to go through the start of Tom Pryce's career.
Pryce began racing in 1969 at the age of 20. He was coached by Trevor Taylor, who was a former Lotus driver and ex-teammate of his hero Jim Clark. His talent was then scouted in Formula 5000. From then on, he competed in the Daily Express Crusader series. It was run by motor racing stables for young promises and used Lotus 51 Formula Ford cars. It alternated between Silverstone and Brands Hatch, where Pryce made his debut. The entry fee to race was £35 per race, which led to Tom having to sell his Mini, while his parents were keen on giving him an extra hand to fulfill his racing career. As a grand prize for the champion, there was a Formula Ford Lola T200, worth £1,500, closer to £23,000 in today's money. For 1970, the championship went right down to the wire, and it was decided at Silverstone the day before the F1 Grand Prix at the same circuit. Pryce qualified on the third row of the grid for said final event. However, he was happy come race day, as it being a UK race meant of course it was wet. Unbeknownst to many, wet weather racing was one of his greatest skills. Early on in the race, the lead was taken by Chris Smith. However, later on, as the rain got worse, Pryce's talent came bubbling to the surface. He would end up winning the race and taking with him the championship and, most importantly, the car. It was then and there that he decided to abandon farming and become a full-time professional racer. Back to you, Nathan.
In 1971, Pryce raced in a number of different championships, including a two-seater series called F100, which got him a lot of media attention as they quoted that he won it with embarrassing ease. He then started competing in the Super V series, driving the competitive Royal RP9 for Team Rumsey Investments. In 1972, Tom Pryce stepped up to Formula 3, where he would be racing for Royal. He would also be competing against other talented drivers such as James Hunt, Jochen Mass and Roger Williamson, who all later went on to compete in Formula 1. In his first Formula 3 race at Brands Hatch, Pryce shocked the field by winning in his uncompetitive Royal RP11. They were so shocked that they were convinced that his car was underweight. However, this backfired when it was revealed that all of the cars were underweight as the weighbridge certificate had expired. Pryce then retired from the next two rounds of the championship, and in free practice in Monaco, he was involved in a freak accident when he stopped in Casino Square because his car had a loose wire. Pryce was trying to fix the problem when fellow driver Peter Lamplow crashed into his car, catapulting him into a shop window. He was left with a broken leg. Pryce returned to racing 2 weeks after his freak accident in Monaco, competing once again in the Super V series, where he later recalled that he basically won every round of the championship that year to win the title. He then competed in the final 3 rounds of the Formula Atlantic Championship, where he took 3 pole positions and a win at the final round at Brands Hatch, a track where he had become an expert. In 1973, Tom Pryce stayed in the Atlantic Championship, winning 3 races. It was then announced that Royal had plans to enter Formula 2. However, this didn't work out as they had only built 1 car and CEO Bob King left the company. However, he did eventually make the move into Formula 2 when he was invited to test for Ron Dennis's Rondell Racing team. The team's greatest achievement that year was at the Norris Ring, when Pryce was leading the race. However, he then suffered a brake failure, so his teammate then went on to win the race. Pryce then won the Grovewood Award for his efforts that year. However, his father Jack Pryce later recalled that he saw this as a jinx on his career. Tom Pryce finally got to race in Formula 1 at the age of 25 for the quite frankly struggling Token team. He managed to get the seat as he was backed by Titan Properties, and his first race was to be a non-championship event at Silverstone. Due to the token being worse than the 2021 Haas, Pryce qualified 26 seconds off the pace of pole sitter James Hunt. He retired 15 laps into the race with a gear linkage problem, but nevertheless he'd started his F1 career. His first World Championship event was at the 1974 Belgian Grand Prix. He qualified 20th, 3 seconds behind pole sitter Clay Regazzoni. Once again he retired from the race after a crash with Jody Scheckter left him with a broken wishbone. Pryce wasn't allowed to enter the 1974 Monaco Grand Prix as he was deemed too inexperienced, so as a result he entered the Formula 3 race in a March 743, which he won by 20.8 seconds. Due to his impressive performance in Monaco and a short spell in Formula 2, Pryce was signed to the Shadow F1 team. In his first race for the team at Zandvoort, he retired after a first lap collision. In his second race at the French Grand Prix, although he qualified 4th, yet again he crashed into James Hunt on lap 1, forcing him to retire. Pryce scored his first points at the Nürburgring. He qualified 11th and then went on to finish 6th. There were very few other highlights from his first year in Formula 1, and he finished 18th in the championship. At the start of the 1975 season, Tom Pryce was linked with a move to Lotus. It was after Colin Chapman had been monitoring his progress, and the idea was that he would swap with Ronnie Peterson. Pryce's teammate Jean-Pierre Jarier outqualified him towards the start of the season. However, this was because Pryce still had the out-of-date Shadow DN3 and Jarier had the new DN5, which Pryce didn't get until the third round of the championship in South Africa. It is undeniable that the 1975 season was where Pryce's talent really came to the fore, as he achieved something that no other driver has done to date. The fourth round of the season was a non-championship event, the Race of Champions, held at arguably Pryce's most successful circuit, Brands Hatch. Tom Pryce put his car on pole but had a bad start, so he had to overtake both Ronnie Peterson and Jackie Ickx and catch up to the leader Jody Scheckter, which he was going to do, and then Jody Scheckter suffered an engine failure, leaving Tom Pryce to win the race and do something that no other Welshman has ever done before by winning an F1 race. He showed further promise that year by qualifying on the first row for both the Monaco and Great British Grand Prix, the latter being a pole position. He also achieved his first World Championship podium at the Austrian Grand Prix. He also had other highlights that year, including 4 points finishes and a notable 4th place at the German Grand Prix. This was despite the fact that he had fuel leaking into his car that was burning his eyes and searing his skin. Pryce later received the Joe Siffert Award for this achievement. The 1975 season proved to be Pryce's most successful season in Formula 1, achieving a career best of 10th in the championship, scoring 8 points. He had a strong start to the 1976 season, scoring a podium in the opening round at Brazil. The Shadow cars then stayed competitive until a regulation change and new tyres dropped them down the order. Pryce received the Shadow DNA at the round at Zandvoort, and he took full advantage of this, qualifying in 3rd place but then dropping back to 4th in the race, but he still scored good points. These would be his final points in Formula 1. He finished 12th in the championship that year with 10 points. At the 1977 South African Grand Prix, Pryce was involved in a horrific incident that ultimately cost him and a 21-year-old marshal their lives. I'm not going to go into the incident at all because it was one of the darkest hours in F1 history and it was truly horrific. It is undoubtable in my mind that Pryce would have won multiple world championships. As he had the talent to, he was just waiting for the opportunity to race for a big team. Finally, I would just like to thank Ray and F1 for featuring in this video, and I will leave a link down in the description as to where you can find